Good. We're going to just show about how to repair some damage in the roof. Yeah. So we've got Angie here with us today just to have a look at what we're doing. We're discussing a small split which I've drawn on the file here, just a little crack which shows in a membrane. In Angie's case, it's a butanol rubber roof which is deteriorated and the crack's opened up. So this is showing a little crack in the roof. This outline here shows where that has been cleaned down locally just with methylated spirits. So we've used a rag with methylated spirits. We've wiped that down until we've looked at the rag and made sure there's no black coming off it, because the black is the oxidisation on the butanol rubber coming off, and which is UV attacking the butanol, causing the black oxidisation, which is the breaking down of the butanol. All right. So that's what we get rid of. We get rid of all that rubbish off the top, and so it's nice and clean. We go like that, and our hands clean. We know we're ready to go. We then get the brush. We wet the brush down, put it into the bucket of material. We open the bucket up, dip it into the bucket. With a wet brush, we'll then apply that over the top of that crack, like so. We'll just work it into the crack, and then we'll use a icy pole stick or a nail or stick, or your finger if you like. Open up the flaps a little bit there if it's still loose. Push the rubber in underneath, and so the liquid rubber is going in underneath the material. That'll help bond the butanol rubber back down to the roof again. So once that's done, you've got that all nice and wet. You then have some polyethylene, this polyethylene fabric, which is a bandage, and that's a material made up of tiny little pin punches. There's thousands and thousands of little holes punched into the fabric. The tiny little holes allow it to stretch and move, only limited, not as much as what the rubber does, but it allows it to move with the cyclic movement. So we break off a little piece of that, which I've done earlier. It's a classic saying, guys. And then we lay that down into the wet material, nice and flat, and the trick is to have this no wrinkles. Once that goes into the liquid rubber, all these wrinkles, if there's any, will actually spread out nice and flat.
Can I just ask a question
Sure.
there? So the first layer you've brushed on the butanol paint stuff.
Yeah.
How quickly do I need to get this layer down?
Fairly much straight away. You've got 5 or 10 minutes, but
Okay.
you wouldn't want to walk away from it because it'll dry fairly quickly.
Okay, so if I've got a patch here to do and a patch here and a patch over there, it's
Yes.
best to do one at a time.
No, you could probably do a run. You could probably do 5 or 6 in an area. That's okay.
So within 5 or 10 minutes, start to get this on.
Yeah. If you do midsummer, you probably do one at a time because it's going to dry real quick. But in this sort of, well, not today, but in cooler weather, it's going to slow down the curing process.
Yeah.
So
And presumably I have to wait till the roof is completely dry.
it's much better to have it dry.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's rained and then it stops raining, you can wipe it down with a towel and dry it off. That's fine.
Okay.
The only danger there is that if there's water gone into that joint, that's going to slow down the curing and the adhesion process. It'll still work, but just slow everything down because there's extra water in there. So if we've got that bandage, we've laid it down there. We usually wear a pair of gloves, so we get these latex gloves, which we usually give everybody who buys a bucket a pair of these, at least one pair. So we put on the glove and then we hold it like that. Not that it's damaging, but it's just hard to get off your skin, that's all. You hold it like that, dip the brush back in the bucket, and then you keep one direction. And then you make sure that completely saturates the fabric. I'll show you what that looks like once it's saturated. Okay, so there's a piece of that same fabric.
Wow.
Yeah, which has been saturated with the material. This particular piece has been sprayed with a spray gun, but that's the same effect.
Okay, and is that just one coating? I mean, you're brushing it a few times, but it's just what you call one coat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it in practice with a brush.
Yeah.
So that's the bandage laid across the joint. This is a cardboard box. All right, we use this for demonstration purposes. We fill it up with water and float little boats around in it when we do our shows.
Fantastic.
We've been doing that for 10 years. So it's got 3 coats on it. Okay. It's been knocked around a fair bit, but it's a good show of what the material will do.
So when you say that's got 3 coats, and you're saying, well, this is just the 1 coat,
Yeah.
should I just leave it at 1 coat?
No, that's just your base coat. So once you've got the first one down, you're working at one direction. If you're coming into a corner, you work out of the corners like that. So there's a T intersection there.
Yeah.
So you work down and you come like that and work like that.
Yep.
And it's got to be flat. You don't want any bumps and wrinkles. You can have that type of thing, but what you don't want is that effect.
Oh, okay.
If you get that effect, and many people tempted, particularly if they're trying to go in a curved area, it'll do this, and then it'll fold over, and they think, oh, that's okay, I'll just push that down. And it does, it goes down and it sits down like so, which doesn't look too bad. But what can happen, as that's drying, it doesn't dry instantly. If it did, it'd be fine. But if as you walk away and go and do another one, this will slowly go like that.
Right.
And then the water can then run in through here. And you've got a little passage that's running all the way back down to right down there. It may not leak, but it might. So the practice is not to have any wrinkles in it at all. If you had to go around a corner, what we do, say this was okay, so this shape went like that.
Yeah.
So there's a big cut in your roof and it was like that. You'd either go one across that way,
Yep.
finish that, then you'd overlay the top of it, so you'd have the first piece like so,
Yep.
then you get the second piece like so, and then you'd work that way.
Yep.
Once you got all nice and neat, you'd make sure that's all nicely dressed down. You've got to be really careful and methodical about it. If you get that down, that's half your battle, well, it's 90% of your battle won, if this is done correctly.
Okay.
If it's not, then it's a bit of a lost cause. The other way to do this one is literally just put a cut in the material, and then you put that one down, and fold this guy over the top, like so. And then once that's saturated with rubber, it gets a lot easier to work with.
Okay.
You fold it over. But if they're nice and flat like that, and that's all saturated down, that works as well.
All right.
Right?
That's good.
So that's type of method mentality. Similarly, when you're coming into a corner, if you've got where your windows are on your place.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
So you've got your windows are quite close to the roof in your situation. Say, let's call this a window. Let's call this a window here. That's a window frame, bit of glass in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the edge of your timber frame there. That's got to be cleaned as well. So you probably need to scrape with a chisel, get a chisel and scrape all that rubbish off the timber, because it's got lacquer and it's got polyurethane, whatever it's got on there.
Oh, and pull out all of the silicone
Not necessarily.
No?
No. If it's still in okay condition, what you'll be doing is coating over the top of that.
Yep.
But what you do is, once you've cleaned this, and this is clean as well, you'll get your bandage again, you wet that down with a coat, so you work the material in there, brush that all in there like so, it's all nice and wet, and you'll have your piece of pre-cut material, you'll lay that in, so that just comes just shy of the edge.
Okay, so it's actually up over the wood.
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
And again, pushing that into the joint, nice and tight in there.
Okay.
You don't want it sitting like this, it's exaggerated. But if you were to finish that and have that sitting there like that, so it was hollow underneath, that's a bad detail.
Okay.
Only because if someone does put their boot on it in future, what they can do is tear that like so and cause a leak.
Yeah. Okay.
It just doesn't look good either.
In my case, where I actually want to use this product along, it's probably about 5-6 metre eave, the whole length of that window. Yeah. Am I better off just doing it in small sections like that so I can control it?
Yes, a metre at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you can actually do a section, clean it, then move to the next section, move your bucket, move your bandage.
Yeah.
You can leave the bandage in one big roll, so you can start rolling your bandage out.
Yeah.
And leave it, push it aside, and just sit it down there. So it's sitting down there.
Yeah.
Work away, and then you keep one piece of bandage going all the way. That eliminates the overlapping possibility of making a mistake.
Yeah. Okay.
If you need to cut it, that's fine. Just overlap it. Make sure that joint's not sitting there. That's all. So that's pretty much the method of detailing. Once all your joints and everything are done with the base detail, that's called base detailing. So you've got that fabric in there that's nicely embedded down. It'll start to look like this now.
Yeah.
So that's all nicely done. Let that dry. Preferably you come back the next day.
Yeah.
And then you into the bucket, brush on another coat.
Okay.
Right? It's just another coat. That's really it.
That's the easy bit then.
That's it.
Second coat.
Second coat is done.
Can I just recap over the important things so far, or the steps? So the first one is to clean it all down with a high pressure hose.
Yes.
One, and also to scrape off, on in my case, the wooden windowsill, just to get off any gunk and build up of rubbish.
Yeah.
The second thing is to then, with a rag, methylated spirits, to clean it off again.
Yep.
Once that's done, I then use the brush to come back here and just to brush it over and to get some in all of the cracks and under the flaps and any open bits.
I should point out at this stage, don't get it too thick and globbly. You just want a nice, even, moderate coat. You don't want great big blobs of the stuff.
Okay.
It'll take a long time to dry, and it doesn't. It works better.
Okay.
This stuff works better in thinner coats and building up in thin coats rather than throwing a lot on at once and hoping it'll dry.
Okay. So once I've given it a first sort of coating in and around where the actual damage is done.
Yep.
Then I use the
fabric.
The fabric.
Yes.
And the important thing here is to hold it in one direction with my glove on, like that.
That's right.
And then just to brush in one direction.
Spot on.
And to ensure that there are no bumps in this fabric.
Yep.
Make it smooth.
That's it.
And
let that dry.
Dry. Come back
dry.
next day, preferably.
Yep. If it's warm weather, you could probably do it in about 3 or 4 hours. Come back over the top and do another coat. And then good practice is to pop another coat again. So you can have 3. If you long term, building those coats up in a nice thin coat again, you'll find on your roof, you can work your way around. By the time you get around, you come back to the first bit, it'll be dry.
Oh, okay.
So you can get the bucket and keep going. If you've got time and you've got energy, that's the best way to keep going.
Yeah.
You'll see it because it goes on a chocolate, looks like chocolate colour, like a light brown.
Oh.
Yep, in its raw state, and then it goes to the black.
Okay.
But if it's warm weather, particularly on metal, if you're doing anything on metal, if it's warm weather, it'll dry black very, very quickly, within minutes. But don't be tempted to work it too quickly because it still needs to cure through.
Okay.
What it does, it gets a skin on the top. If you think, oh, it's dry, you come on with your brush with a wet coat, you'll pull the skin off and expose the wet material underneath, and then it gets all messy because of the skin. So you don't be too tempted to rush out if it does dry really quick. You just need to let it go. And really, that's it. I mean, as long as you're careful and methodical and neat, that's the main thing. And if you just do spot patches and you really want it to look neat, you can actually, before you stage, after you've cleaned it with method, you can put masking tape around there just to get a border and make a nice square or rectangle patch out of it. Just a bit of blue masking tape, which I can't seem to lay my hands on at the minute. And then after you've completely finished, come tear that off, and that leaves you with a nice, nice patch.
That sounds good. Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, that's it for detailing. If we were, contracted to come in and spray that roof, we would detail it once, put the one coat down. We probably wouldn't come back and do the second coat. We'd just do the base coat, and then we'd spray the whole lot together.
Right. And you do the base coat by hand? Is that what
we do the detailing
exactly
always.
As you've explained.
Always with a brush.
Yeah, because it's really important to get that really smooth and exact.
That's specific. You got to. That's the. As I say, 90% of the job is won if this part of it's done correctly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That sounds good. And is there anything I need to do to the product, or it just is?
No, as it is. If it's a little bit milky on the top of it, give me 2 seconds. I'll get another bucket and show you so I can open up. Oh, it's something I did this morning. Okay, that's the actual material. If I put a glove on, what do I do with that?
It is like chocolate.
It is. Don't be tempted to drink it or eat it. Right, let's get a bit of paper. So, that's the material. This is going to be a bit messy, but if I just to show without wetting a brush or anything at the moment. But that's it going down. Out in the sun, it does look a bit lighter out in the sun.
Yeah.
Now, if I keep that going, and the warmth of my fingers will actually start to dry this. I can feel it getting thicker, like as I'm doing it, it's starting to drag on my fingers a little bit. So you see, working time's quite generous. I mean, you know,
Yeah, it is. I
in
can
this
see
sort of
that.
temperature.
Yeah.
So it's not going to go off really quick in a hurry. And look, even if it does, you just come over the top of it again with some more wet product.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gentleman's come around to pick this piece. I did this morning for him because he had some blistering. What he did was coated his, and that might happen on your roof, because of the moisture gets inside and saturates the timber underneath. In your case, you've got wet moisture sitting there. So you come along and cover it up, and then the sun does come out. You get one of those days where the sun pops out. So you've got heat on the roof and being black, it generates a lot of, what the water will want to do is say, okay, I'm sitting in here, I'm covered up now, I can't get out.
Yeah.
It actually, see that's starting to,
Yeah. Right.
it's actually becoming adhesive now.
Right.
Just in that short
Yeah.
time, see it's starting to dry
Yeah.
on my hand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
you can get that off in a minute. I'll give you some spray. So that's coming off. Just use the tissue and a little bit of this. This will take it off. Spray that onto a tissue. Yeah. That's engineer grease, they're water based. So see how that's starting to tack up?
Yeah. Yep. Fantastic.
So it's starting to stick, and that's just a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Just sort of shows what the material does, really, more than
Yeah.
anything. You know.
I'm tempted to ask what is it, but I won't ask.
No, it's a bitumen base. It's
It is
an asphalt bitumen base. It's got elastopolymers mixed in with it, which keep it all nice and soft and supple. Because
Yeah.
it's basically an age-old waterproofing product, bitumen,
Yeah.
which they used to use on
Yeah.
boats for caulking
Yeah.
boats back in the day.
Yeah. Is that what butanol is made from?
Most waterproofing products do have an asphalt base or a bitumen base.
Yeah.
Well, not most, but in this alkyl material it does.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of materials that have been on the market for a long time, for many years, but most of them actually dry and crack after a period of time, and that's been the problem with them. They were used for a long time, and then they became unpopular because they started to dry out.
Right.
One of the biggest ones is what plumbers use is blackjack,
Yeah.
and that's out of a can. They put it on to a lot of their flashings and roof
Yeah.
fittings. They're great for a few years, works very well, but then it dries and cracks, and then there's problems.
Mhm.
This stuff doesn't dry and crack out. That's the whole purpose of it.
Okay.
You can see that's becoming quite to a point where, so this is an adhesive as well.
Yeah.
Some people actually use it like that as a contact, and then you put your tile on the wall, and you can stick your tile on there, bang, and walk away.
Right.
So,
Just when you're coming back to this,
Yeah.
the very first bit, you said, oh, you can sort of put, the product sort of inside the damaged area and around.
Yep.
But you're also giving it an area, a good coating
Yeah.
of around sort of 5 centimetre area around
Beyond,
as well.
yes,
around
yes,
that
that's
well,
right.
that whole area.
yeah, so with the
Yeah.
brush, you're sort of coating 75 mil each
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
with a brush that size, 3-inch brush.
Yeah.
So you can't help but get 75 mil width to
Yeah.
start with.
Beautiful.
Your bandage is 100 mil actually. This is actually 100 mil wide when,
Alright.
when you get it anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well use the area of 100, think of 100 mil plus.
Yeah.
So once you've got your 100 mil down, you work 100 plus 10 gives you 120. So you
Yeah.
think of it as 120 mil.
Okay. Yeah.
There and abouts, that's usually the best material. There we go.
Mhm.
Okay,
Incredible.
so it shows what it's about.
Yeah.
That makes it easy to get rid of. Oh yeah, well that's the actual material just been, that's sprayed that piece.
On its own, with nothing in it.
Nothing in it, you can
Wow.
stretch.
So that's that with the membrane.
Yeah, and this got a little bit of give, but it's quite tough. This is quite tough with this on. You can stretch that.
Licorice, I am tempted to
Yeah,
use it.
yeah. You can stretch that right out. You know, you can really give it a, yeah.
Oh, it's got
Yeah,
holes
when
in
it's
it.
thin, you keep going, it will, but yep. And what that'll do, if you put it down, it'll actually shrink back down again.
Oh.
It'll take time,
Yeah.
but it's got a memory. So if you get a pen, you go like that. Okay. This one's been done 100 times. But that little pinhole in there will actually close back up on itself. And when it touches back to itself like that, it'll stick and stop the water coming in.
Amazing.
And that's sort of shown here by...
Hello.
G'day, Anita. How you going?
How are you?
Good. We're doing a little film and a little education class here.
Oh, be very quiet then.
That's, thanks. That's been poured into a lid of a bucket, so it's a really super huge, thick piece. You know, that took about a week to cure out, you know, before it became, so we could peel it off. But because these pieces just sat on top of each other, you can see they're stuck to each other. Mm-hmm. But that's what that was. And you literally can't, you can try, you can't get them apart.
Yeah, I can see it's actually just all moulded together.
And that's just because they sat down on top of each other, sitting over there on top of the bucket.
Yeah. All right. I just need this rain to stop for a little while.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
To get up on the roof.
That gives you an idea of how much it, you know, will bond to itself.
I reckon you've been such a good teacher. I reckon I can have a good crack at doing this myself.
As long as you're safe up there, that's the main thing. And you can do it.
Yeah.
You just got to keep safe. That's the risk of your roof up there without proper full arrest is probably the only worry I would have.
I'm used to kind of clambering around up there.
As long as you're confident on that, and you know, you don't get lost in doing it and step backwards, which is what's happened before.
not up there, not on that particular side of the house.
Yeah. But you'll be, look, you can do it.
You've explained in such good detail, and explained, you know, what can happen if I do it incorrectly, which is really important.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm fairly confident I can manage this myself.
Yep. And with our DIY, you buy a bucket from the DIY part of the business.